Hi there, this is Justin Krane, Certified Financial Planner Professional and founder of Krane Financial Solutions. Welcome to Money You Got This. So how can you really live? How? By uniting your business money, your personal money with your life and your business. Word up.
Krane Financial is an SEC-registered investment advisor. However, such registration does not imply a certain level of skill or training, and no inference to the contrary should be made. A copy of our current written disclosure statement discussing our advisory services and fees is available upon request. Information contained herein is for informational and illustrative purposes only, and general in nature. It should not be considered specific financial planning or investment advice, or a recommendation to buy or sell any type of securities or other investment products.
Hey everyone, welcome to Money You Got This. This show is brought to you by Krane Financial Solutions. I'm Justin Krane. I'm a Certified Financial Planner Professional. I offer investment management services and act as a fractional CFO for business owners. I actually wrote a book way back when. It's called Money You Got This. It's a book about money, life, and business, crazy funny money stories that I've written. Half of them are about weird stuff that I've done, coming up with a money lesson for all of you. So check that out. I'm psyched you're listening to the show. I want to give you this free report, 3 things multimillionaires do to grow their wealth. Just go to coolmoneyshow.com to grab it. That's coolmoneyshow.com to grab it. Thanks. Speaking of money lessons, I've got a great team to bring to you today. They are in the category of tax people. I call people who do accounting tax people, but they rock. Before I give you the whole bio and where they've worked and all that kind of stuff, let me just introduce them together. We have Ilona Brunner and Takaya Brunner from Brunner Accounting Group. Welcome, guys.
Thank you so much for having us. Excited to be here.
Yes. So Ilona, passion for serving business owners and individuals, fueled by your desire to open your own practice after spending, I think, 82 years at a big 4 accounting firm and like 12 years as a local CPA in Burbank. You've done a lot.
Yeah, I just look really good for my age, I guess, right?
You do. Tax returns, tax planning, consulting, IRS, state audits, all of that kind of stuff. But really what I think I love about you is your energy. You are super kind, and I think do a great job at working with your clients to make them feel like taxes don't have to be so overwhelming. That's the Justin version of the bio. Your goal to help clients feel comfortable with tax planning and to avoid being overwhelmed by taxes and accounting. You've done tons of different industries, entertainment, financial, trucking, healthcare, the whole gamut. And you work with startups to businesses that do north of 100 million. Your partner in crime, Takaya. Welcome, Takaya. Partner of Brunner Accounting as well. Yes. I got to put you in like the tech category because I've read your bio and I'm like, man, this guy knows tech. Like seriously. That's pretty much it. Smart accountant with technology, that's someone who I want to talk to. So you focused on hospitality clients, sports and entertainment, global software companies. I mean, you've built frameworks on financial statements, proactive tax planning, and I think that's awesome. But let's get into the real thing. You guys are now a team. You both were working on your own. You're married and you decided to work together. What is that all about? And is it work? How is that?
We're crazy.
Great. I mean, we've wanted to do this for a long time, like 8 or 9 years, I think. We've always had this dream of working together. You know, I think that the things that we value have been aligned for a long time, and we've said, you know what, I can't think of a better business partner that we complement each other's strengths. And you know, I think that it's also a challenge to find a business partner who you trust wholeheartedly, right? And so that's one of the benefits for us, especially for a small and medium-sized CPA firm where you don't have the benefit of hundreds of partners or something like that. When you choose one, just like when you choose your significant other, I think that's you choose once and you choose for a long time. So that was one of the benefits for us, for sure.
Let me ask you guys a question about strengths.
Sure.
Do you believe that you should leverage each other's strengths in business or try to make your weaknesses better? Like, how do you handle, okay, I'm going to do this, you're going to do that. Or do you focus on your strengths? I would think that's the direction you go, but I'm curious.
Yeah, I mean, Ilona, let me know.
Okay.
Sort of what sticks to mind is one of the Peter Drucker quotes, right? That says, focus on your strengths, right? You want to be good at what you're good at as opposed to always trying to be mediocre at what you're not good at, So I think that's something that we take to heart. And I also think that it sort of inadvertently goes that way just because people like to do what they like to do, and what they like to do, they do best at, right? So it's great when what you like to do is complemented by what somebody else likes to do. What do you think?
I totally agree. A good example is that Takaya joined Brunner Accounting Group because he is so good at the framework and the scaling of businesses and thinking very strategically about that. It was really natural to have him really drive those initiatives. Because are they important? Yes. But is that where I really shine? No. And so I think having him drive that because he is good at it is just natural, and then of course we can be there to support and work collaboratively. But that is how we run our practices. We focus on our strengths and try to get better if it's needed in the areas that we're not so good in, but we definitely don't make that our focus and our ultimate goal.
Yeah.
So
I got to imagine, like, you're running the business, Ilona, on your own. You're at the beach. You're talking about the business, and you're talking to Takaya, and you're like, I'm trying to do this. And then you kind of think, well, maybe he should just work with me. And then, like, you're like hanging out watching TV. Another thought comes into your mind. You're like, God, what do you think about this?
Right.
Was that change coming over like a few years where you're like, you had to really think it through to want him to come, or was it something you always wanted? Or did you just wake up one day and be like, okay, I'm in, let's do it together?
Well, like he said, I think ever since we both got our licenses, once Takaya got licensed, we both had this dream of, hey, maybe we can work together someday and we can run a practice together. And that seemed very intriguing. We like the idea of being business owners and entrepreneurs and building something together. So that's always been at the forefront, but just we needed more experience. I think we were too young, we didn't have the confidence or have what we needed underneath our belts. But I think once I started the practice, the hope was, if I can get this to a point where we can financially afford for Takaya to quit his job and join, that would be amazing. So I think that I always had in the back of my mind, when starting it, I'd love for him to be able to join me. We just needed to make the numbers work and get to a point where we could pay our bills. And if we could pay our bills with the income that Brunner Accounting Group was bringing on, then we could say, okay, let's talk about now seriously both committing to building this practice together and both being self-employed. So yeah. I think that's how it happened.
Love
and
it.
Luckily that happened faster than I expected. And so I think about 8-9 months into building the business, I realized, oh gosh, 2020 tax season is going to be really hard without someone else. So then we had the conversation about seriously having him join me as of beginning of 2020, and he joined January. So that's how that worked out.
This show is called Money, You Got This, and we talk about life, money, and business. And what better to talk about than the financial planning aspect of bringing your husband in to work with you? Did you actually sit down and really drill through the numbers? Okay, I'm doing X. If Takaya comes in, I need to bring in 3X or whatever the number is. That means 17 clients based on our living expenses and all of that kind of stuff. Did you strategically, now I know your Colby score, so I know your answer, but I want everyone to hear it.
Right.
Did you strategically map this out, and what did you think about that experience? How was that for you?
Do you want to start and then I'll jump in? Because I think, Takaya is really good at, like cash flow analysis and the financial aspect of it. Of course, I am too. But what we did was we sat down and first just determined, really got granular with our monthly expenses, because clearly the first goal is to be able to afford your current monthly expenses. So we divided that between fixed and variable. And we got really good with figuring out what that real number is, adding a little bit more cushion, understanding that there are going to be additional costs because we will now both be self-employed. Healthcare is one of them, right? So that's fairly significant for most self-employed people, is now you have 100% of the healthcare costs on your plate. And just thinking through what we needed on a monthly basis in order to continue our lifestyle as is. We honestly didn't have a ton of wiggle room in terms of cutting back and budgeting. We already felt like we were being pretty conscious about our spending. So it was more of a determination of, okay, like how can we make these expenses based on the current income that Brunner Accounting Group is bringing in, and then of course building in a growth projection. So yes, we got very specific, and that actually is a lot more time consuming and difficult than most people think. You know, and there are a lot of solutions out there, lots of applications you can use, and not all of them really help answer that question. And especially when you're blending business expenses and personal expenses, and you're looking at both being self-employed, it becomes, you know, quite complicated. Yeah. And not an easy, oh, you can use one statement and it answers all the questions in the world. And so even us being accountants had a little bit of a, how is the best way to structure this? And how do we answer all our questions using one application or one spreadsheet? And so of course we kind of created our own, but what else did I miss?
No, I think it's great. I mean, I think also one of the things we did as well is, you know, at the beginning, don't overcomplicate it, right? Like back of the envelope calculation, is this feasible? Sort of produce a mini business case or something about what you're looking to do. Okay, we'll then say, okay, you know, say we have $10,000 in expenses, you know, build that out. What can we cover now? How do we break it out? What are our goals for next year? And then I think the part that really got us excited was we said, as you were alluding to, what are our sort of future growth trajectory if we say add myself to the business? What's a realistic growth path, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's when we started to say, okay, look, phase 1 of the business is this, phase 2 is this, phase 3 is this, because if you don't have a target, you'll never reach it, right? So that's sort of the approach we took, and we're happy we're in phase 2 now. Phase 1 is taken care of, and you know, we can check that off our list, off our checklist.
You guys should just retire. You're done.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we're done. Don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. We'll see us at the beach.
So you guys mentioned a few things that the three of us get, but for everyone listening and driving in their cars when they listen to this or watching on video, there's a few things that I just think we want to talk through and make sure that people understand. The first thing is, flat out, is you guys created some intention about what you wanted. And I think that's huge, really, really big. Then, which was for Takaya to join and to work together. Then it was really about getting a little bit more detailed on these expenses. So you mentioned fixed and variable, and then you mentioned expenses overall. Are we talking personal expenses, business expenses, or both? And what do you, I know what fixed and variable are, but if you were talking to your 8-year-old, and by the way, your 2 boys are so cute. I saw pictures of them. They're adorable. If you were talking to your kids, what would you say about fixed versus variable expenses? And
yeah, so I mean, I think you sort of started a conversation on some really interesting paths, right? And these are struggles that we deal with every day, especially on trying to understand, you know, as a Schedule C, you know, as a sole prop. It really is almost hard to break apart personal versus business, right? As accountants, we want to make sure that you've got your books for your business, but we all know that your business, typically for us who are both self-employed in this one business, it needs to fund our life, right? Yeah. So we need to make sure we have the money there. And the other thing that we also bring up is this idea of cash flow, which is we could have the best intentions about making money, but we need to make sure we have cash in the right accounts, right? And then the final thing I bring up is there's this interesting difference between, I want to make sure we're using the right language when we're talking about expenses that can change, but not applied to, I guess, your technical variable expense thing, according to cost of it, more some accounting nerdy stuff. But the way that we would explain that part to our kids is what has to come out of your pocket no matter what, and then what can you choose comes out of your pocket. Like, what do you have control over versus what you don't have control over? And there are different gradients of control, right? Like if we really wanted to, we could sell our house and start renting at a much cheaper rate. But that's, again, where you have to draw a line in the sand. You say, okay, these are non-negotiables and I'm going to work off of this platform, right? And then once you outline that, everything outside of that you have control over. Similar thing for us, a big bucket is internet purchases, right? We like to think we have control over internet purchases, but every time we make them, we feel like they have to happen, right? So it's just one of those things where, you know, identifying which are which, and then sort of building off of that. And also part of it is just being comfortable that you can't control everything, right? So at least once you sort of build in that framework, you can say, okay, then you can sleep at night knowing that you've done everything that you need to do.
Right. No, I totally agree. No, I think you explained that perfectly. Which is,
and then,
you know, certain expenses that are going to be the exact same number or around the same number every month, and you can't help the cost of that for the most part. And then other ones where you really have a ton of control over how much you're spending, like those miscellaneous internet purchases or your, you know, just your travel, you know, those are all choices you make versus every month our mortgage is due on the 1st and that number isn't changing. So,
I mean, I guess to say the way that we break it down is we essentially have 3 real analyses that we run every week as opposed to like performance stuff. First is, how's our business doing? So we've got a business focused QuickBooks. That is just, if a bank needs a P&L, this is what we send them to know how the business is doing. Second, we say, how is us as our entire life is doing? That includes personal and business, right? Because
how do you measure that? How do you measure number 2?
We actually put it all in a single QuickBooks. And so that's what we do. We say we've got our personal and our business, but then our business, we're going to just bulk categorize as everything coming through our business credit cards and our business checking account is simply bucketed into business income and business expenses. And then on the personal side, that's when we get into more granularity about, you know, where is our money going in terms of those other buckets, right? Because that then helps us answer the third question, which is how are we on a cash basis? So do we have cash in the right accounts to pay our right bills? That goes into an Excel sheet that we sort of track the actual cash between all the accounts, but it lets us see at the end of the day, what is a true leftover number, so we can make these decisions. Well, can we transfer this into savings now? How does that impact us in the future? Can we invest in a new television? Right. Maybe not invest, maybe expense new television, right? But then we can at least see in a global picture how it goes. Because it's really tough having books that are so separate when the reality of the thing is we're all technically one entity, you know, like maybe we do a little DBA or whatever it is, but we're all right now in that personal side, one thing, and that helps us make decisions.
And even if you're not, to kind of have a lot of flow through entities, lots of S Corps and partnerships, really, people take their net earnings from their business to fund a lifestyle, right? And I think the challenging part is that most business owners have a really good sense of what's going on in their business. You know, they're working on it every day. Hopefully they're looking at their financials often. And so if you ask them about margins and profitability, someone who has their thumb on their business and understands what's going on can answer that question quite quickly. What's challenging is now the net's taken and is funneled to fund your personal life. And that's where it becomes a little muddled and difficult. And I think that's where true budgeting and cash flow analysis is interesting, because we can talk about the business, but if you truly don't have a good sense and have control over how those funds are being spent on the personal side, it can unravel. And then it's very difficult to pay your taxes, or if you get a large tax bill, it's like, oh, whoa, I didn't put enough aside. So it's all so commingled and intertwined, and that's what we struggle with and is a challenge for us. And so we're, you know, coming up with solutions that work for us, and hopefully we can help our clients with that too, because that is, I think, a very important part of being a business owner is, great, your business is doing well, but let's talk about what's happening on the personal side, because you can still be financially stressed and not in a great position if you're living above your means, or if you haven't really been paying attention to those personal spending. Yeah, no,
you're talking about a ton of what I do for my clients. I know, I totally get it. There was a lot of questions, but I just want to go with a simple one. So many people talk about this word cash flow, And it's this weird, vague term that like it can mean 17 different things to different people. It can mean I don't have enough sales. It could mean I don't have money in the bank. It could mean I owe my credit card $10,000 and I'm waiting on this check from a client to come in. It hasn't come in yet and I got to make this payment and I don't know what to do. So I thought I would just put it out there that this term cash flow could be very, very different to different people. And it's important for when someone says cash flow that they really stop and think, is it sales? Is it cash management? Is it, you know, collecting money? Is it paying out money? Like, what does that actually mean? And that's why I love the statement of cash flows. I mean, I use that all of the time with my clients or business owners. But what you guys talk about on the personal side, how you think a lot of, or you, I guess you're saying you think business owners can kind of do a quick snapshot of their books and get it, but they might get stuck on the personal. What I'm seeing is they're stuck on the business too. They're not clear.
That's true.
I mean, you guys and I, like we know numbers, but I see a lot of times business owners, they're not really clear on how much money their business is making, or if their business is making a lot and they don't have the cash, they're thinking my business made a profit of this, but there's no cash, or my business did a lot of sales, but there's no earnings.
Sure.
So I just see a lot of that, and I'm curious how you communicate cash and cash flow to your clients when you're talking about taxes and money management.
Yeah, that's a great point. And maybe I'll let, you know, Ilona, if you want to take that one, but because I wanted to touch on something that you said earlier, which I think is sort of the nugget that's followed me across my entire career, which is, and you were saying tech, but it's garbage in, garbage out. Every company under the sun always has a data quality issue, right? Data quality is at a single point in time, do I know how my company is doing? If I have 1,000 different departments, how do I know that they're all speaking the same language or they're all in the same systems? And that translates all the way to the small business as well to the large business. And it really comes down to this idea that if you can't measure it, you can't manage it, right? And also, so that puts a lot of focus on the importance of that foundation, which is the purpose of your financials isn't just to give you something to do on the weekend. The purpose of having good financials is so you can use them to make decisions about your business, so you can use them to drive the value of your business. Think how important it is if you have a competitor that has a way better product than you, but you know your financials so well that you can eke out profit margins here or there, and you know what the return is on a certain advertising campaign, so then you can go whole hog on that. And your competitor may be killing it on something else, but because you know your financials so well, you can take them to the cleaners, right, in terms of winning business and doing all those things. So I think it's just really important on that. And then it also comes back down to this idea where I totally empathize with business owners, because we're the same way, which is, I think we talked about this before, there's these 3 pillars, right, that are extremely important in all business: operations, sales, and back office. And people are only good at 2 things. And business owners rightfully focus on operations and sales, because you need to get more money and you need to provide what you say you're going to provide. And so that leaves that back office part, right? And that's where you know, just making it a priority is going to be very helpful. So then you can drive those other 2 pieces.
Right.
And then the cash flow.
Yeah, I completely agree. So when we talk about cash flow, and in the circle, at least of clients that we have and what we do, first, what it means is it combines a lot of different things. So it's not a very simple answer, but essentially the crux of it is, given what you have available to you in liquid cash, can you cover your expenses, and for how long of a runway is that? So if you don't bring anything in, and let's say you have accounts receivable on the books, that's just wonderful, but what if they don't pay you next week? Do you have enough cushion in order to cover those expenses? And that's a really important thing to answer, because if your runway isn't long enough, and a pandemic happens, you know, who would think? It becomes a little stressful, right? Because you haven't planned for a really bad scenario. So planning so that you have enough cushion to cover some of those expenses, even if you don't collect the timely, and for some reason our client hits a financial challenge. So it combines a bunch of different things. So yes, it combines sales, it combines what do you expect to be collecting based on the work that you've done, and looking at your expenses. But generally for me, I think it's important to see, are you able to afford running your businesses for how long, and how much cushion is there, given all of those other components. So hopefully that's a little clear.
Thank you. Everyone's hearing this and they're like, oh my God, this is insane. I don't want to deal with this.
Right.
I don't.
I can understand
here are
that.
these three people who know money and are talking about it like it's chopped liver. But here
Sure.
I am listening to this and like, this is way over my head. Cash, burn rate, AR, blah, blah, blah. So what I think the takeaway is you have to find good, smart, trusted advisors that can do a lot of the heavy lifting for you, and then tell you in a language that you can understand so you can make decisions. Like whoever gets into business to make widgets, that's their specialty, making widgets, right, delivering a service. But I can see business owners, they start trying to do their own books, or they get frustrated with the bookkeeper. The bookkeeper isn't good at explaining to the client what's going on.
Right.
And then like, I'll just let you know that when I talk to a lot of my clients about CPAs, their energy just goes way down, way down. Cause it's like, they don't want to deal with taxes, with money, like you handle it, Justin. So how do you get people out of this sense of overwhelm and paralysis and making them feel like it's not just all on them?
Yeah, and I mean, that's the sort of, I think that's a challenge everybody faces, especially in the internet age right now. We have a lot of information at our fingertips, but so what? What matters? What's relevant to me, right? And I think that the way that, we approach doing this is to say, to distill essentially, this is what matters, right? Break down to them and say, this is what's important. This is what you need to worry about. Everybody's going through it, and then sort of wade through the noise and give them the so what, right? And also, I think a big part, and as you're talking about finding advisors and everything like that, is I think it's important to make sure that your advisors care about your problems, because they're your problems and they're there to help you solve your problems, not, do what they've done 1,000 times and just find a bunch of people that'll do that. Because in our day and age, everything is productized, everything is computer driven, but and there are a lot of commoditized things, right? Like inputting information into a form, but what isn't is listening, interpreting, hearing what you're saying and saying, well, in order to solve your problems, this is what we need to do, and sort of go from there and then show a path to execution, right? Because one thing we've also found is there are a lot of great ideas out there, but just dropping it back on somebody's plate and say, okay, this is the idea, and now get it done. It's okay, this is the idea, and these are the 5 steps we need to do that to get there. Let's break it down. Here's our immediate takeaways. You as the client do this. Let us know when that's done, and we'll take it to the next step. Very digestible, especially because everybody's busy, right? And it comes back down to that point, which is the business owner that tries to do everything themselves is one that is always running, right? Trying to find ways to have somebody else take care of what you're not good at. And I think that's similar to our practice, is sort of bringing it back to the beginning, which is lean into your strengths and find somebody else to do the things you don't want to do. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that comes to mind with how we really try to overcome this challenge of having taxes be overwhelming and really boiling it down to having the client understand and take ownership is really taking significant time to review tax returns with our clients. So every client of ours, whether they like it or not, has to have a call or a meeting with us, and a Zoom call so we can share our screen and review the tax return. And that is extremely important. And I think that once they've gone through that experience, and a lot of them are going through that for the first time, if they're switching accountants, I mean, that's not something that's for sure, given if you're working with an accountant, a lot of times, you know, a firm will send you a tax return and say, here it is, signed and sent back, and we'll file. And I kind of explain it like a black hole, you know, it's like they just feel like information sucked into this black hole and they don't know what happens to it. And what we do is we really try to educate our clients and boil it down, like Takaya said, to what really matters on this return. Let me explain to you what happened. And then just, I know it sounds really basic, but go, what are your questions? Because I think so often is they're just talked to, and acronyms are used like AGI, which stands for adjusted gross income. But what does that mean to a client? If you don't know the definition of adjusted gross income, I could say that to you a million times and you'll just be looking at me like I'm an alien, right?
Yeah.
So breaking it down to, this is how much you earn. These were your expenses. This is what you were able to deduct. These are some of the tax credits you qualified for. So really just using plain English, I think, goes a long way. And then just asking them what questions they have. And sometimes a lot of our clients actually are, you know, new clients. They say a good reason for wanting to switch is they just feel like they're not getting the attention they need. And they're not real, they have no sense of real control over the process. And so we want to give that back to them. And I think a good way to do that is to sit down and educate them and give them the opportunity to voice those concerns and questions and not feel, you know, like they're dumb for asking it, because we all have those questions. And even being a CPA, you know, I want to ask a financial advisor a question sometimes, and I may think like, maybe I should know that as a CPA, but you know, I'm gonna just ask it anyway. And it's nice to have an environment where you feel comfortable just voicing those concerns without being judged. So I think that's really key to the process. And whether your smallest clients or a larger client, you get that same call and the same exact explanation. So I think that's been really valuable for us to build that relationship, and for our clients to feel that we're listening to them and we really care about helping demystify this process of a tax return. Because very often it really is, oh, here are my documents and here is a return you spit out and I have no idea why I pay what I pay or why I get back what I get back. And that should not be the case.
Cool. Now comes the fun part of some questions I get.
That was all fun too, right?
Talking about numbers.
Did you guys meet in Claremont?
Yes, we met in college.
You met in college. Why, what was the spark? Like, what happened?
It's funny, we actually just told this story to a couple friends the other day.
It's now live.
Spark, you know, Takaya was coming back from a rugby game. He was a rugby player in high school and then played on the college team. And he had just finished a game. I think had a few beers. I won't say how many, I'm not even sure. He'll admit it. Was wearing a mouth guard on his ear, which I thought was pretty nasty.
My wine microphone.
I love it.
Yeah.
And then I was helping set up for homecoming. And so a mutual friend of ours roped him into helping us and move tables. And that's how we first met, is an afternoon moving tables and kind of getting set up for a big homecoming party. And I think we just instantly connected and had a good conversation and became friends, and then that turned into something else, and now we are married for almost 10 years and have a third kid on the way. So who knew that one day where I went, ew, why is this guy wearing his mouth guard on his ear, turned into, you know, a marriage and a few children. So.
I think that sort of plays back to what we're saying with our strengths, is that Ilona was organizing for a big party, with moving the troops, moving all the tables, getting all squared and squared away. And I was walking back after a sporting event with a buddy, and, you know, got roped into helping out. Yeah. And it was a great experience.
But he was happy to help and didn't even
very happy to help.
So.
That's super cool. I actually have played a lot of tennis at Claremont, not in college there, but I've played on those courts. One of my best friend's father was I think he ran the political science department for like 20 years. So I've been out there for a while. Claremont is awesome, and I know it well, so that's cool. Let me ask you this question. Why are you guys doing accounting? Like, what is it about accounting? I mean, you could be like, whatever, but you must love something about it. So why did you get into it, and why are you still doing it?
It's a good question. So I always had an interest in business from a young age. I didn't really know what specialty. I mean, that's such a broad term, right? Like, oh, I want to do business. Like, what does that mean? And I think the great thing with going to Claremont McKenna is that it's a liberal arts school. And so they really give you an opportunity in the first couple years they require you, to take a bunch of different courses just to be well versed and to figure out what your true interests are. And for me, I took my first accounting course and it was like the heavens opened up and I was like, oh, this is my calling. It just made sense. And it was exciting. And I know that sounds really nerdy, but I just felt that this may be it. But being the planner and the risk averse person I am and wanting to cover all my bases, I did an economics accounting major with a finance minor. And I thought, well, listen, if I don't like accounting, I can switch to finance. And if I don't like finance, then I can maybe be an economist, and go into consulting. And that's also one of the reasons I decided to get an MBA is because I just felt like being diversified in the business world is important. And I think that having that background helps me bring a different spin to clients. And I always tell clients that sometimes I don't think that the best tax decision is the right business decision. And they're a little taken back by that, but it's important because when I talk to someone, I'm not only going to be thinking about the tax implications. I really want to think about the other implications of a decision. And sometimes it's not a good business decision. And so maybe you do pay more in taxes, but who cares?
Yeah, I love that, by the way. I love that. I really resonate with that because I give a lot of advice that is bad for tax sometimes, but good for someone's life.
Right.
And I'm like, this is good. Anyways, keep going.
Right. No, and that's really key. But I did do my first job. It was an internship between my junior and senior year was an audit, and I was auditing for KPMG. I'm sorry, for PricewaterhouseCoopers, and I hated it. I actually left that summer going, I can't accept my full-time offer. I cannot see myself being an auditor, and I chose the wrong major. And actually, traditionally, every accounting student in Claremont pretty much went into audit. And that was just the road you took. And I think it's a great start, but I hated it. I could not imagine myself doing that full time. So luckily, I got a second opportunity to do a tax internship. And when I did the tax internship, it made sense. I could blend this accounting background that I had with doing taxes. And what I loved about tax is that you're given raw data and you produce something. You produce a return, you produce savings, you can produce strategy. As an audit intern, and clearly I only had a little bit of time in it and spent a few more rotations in it, I just didn't feel that same level of excitement and the level of creativity that I think tax allows you. So that's why I really fell in love with accounting and tax. It was logical for me, and then tax gave me that, oh, this is really neat. We can talk strategically, and you're talking to the business owner. And again, having that diverse background and thought process, it was really nice to talk to someone about, well, let me learn more about your business and the operations of it. I don't want to just help you on the tax side. And that's what I think Takaya are really excited to do now with the clients we're servicing is you're growing. And so how can we be a resource for you beyond just getting your tax returns done? And that's the fun part for us.
Yeah. And from my perspective, I mean, I'm more of a generalist than Ilona. She was sort of laser focused from the beginning. I'm more of sort of a breadth of experience. So when I went to Claremont, I took advantage of total, the liberal arts education. I had a PPE major, which was politics, philosophy, economics, sort of combined into one, and then I doubled with economics, and sort of focused on that and went into consulting and more of the advisory side. And that's one of the misnomers I think is about CPAs, right? Is that it's tax, but there's this huge audit component, there's a huge advisory component, there's a huge IT component, a lot of control stuff. There's a lot of different things out there. And so I sort of took that more path of being trusted advisor, business advisor, understanding, these things, and then sort of approaching the problems of saying, look, okay, we've got all these things going on. Let's just take the experience that we've had with the businesses and financials and sort of understanding controls and say, okay, how can we get to what your solution is, and sort of going from there. And then on the small to medium-sized business front, you know, they focus more on taxes than the audit side. But as we move forward in this day and age, I think that the practice of being an accountant is going to change quite dramatically, because more and more commoditized is going to be filling out the forms, and a lot more is going to be, as you're alluding to, providing this personalized advice and insight, and really having the things that are being produced provide meaning to then actually drive and solve problems, right?
Love it.
Yeah.
Takaya, were you born here?
No, I've sort of been around. So I was born in Tokyo, and then I moved to Canada when I was, I think, 2.5, 3. And then I grew up in Canada the rest of that until high school. And I came down to Claremont from Canada. So I was on a student visa for a little bit, and then I didn't marry Ilona for a green card. I had a green card before I married her. And then, and then I sort of came around.
So your
Claremont wasn't what I imagined California to be, by the way.
Your parents are first generation Japanese, correct?
No, actually, my dad is Canadian American. His dad was from Switzerland. So
wow.
We go by Brunner. And so it's he graduated from college and then moved to Japan and lived there for 8 years after graduation, and spoke, and he read Japanese newspapers. So any person of Japanese descent knows that that's an accomplishment for a foreigner to come in and do that. So he was really fluent, and he married my mom, and then they moved back to Canada when I was a couple years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
I read about your parents, Ilona. Very, very cool.
Oh.
Both Romanian, right? And it's
both born in Romania and both immigrated here. My mom is of Armenian descent. My dad's Hungarian, but both born in Romania. And my mom and her family immigrated in the mid-60s, and my dad in the 70s. And they met here. So first generation American. And I think I've been really blessed to kind of know the struggles of my grandparents and my parents being born and raised in a communist country, and just appreciating all the opportunities that that the United States has offered them, and kind of growing up understanding the privilege of having a lot of these resources at your disposal was huge for them and for me, right? So we're quite international, and our kids are and our kids are going to be quite confused once they're at an age where they can understand their backgrounds, because it's such a melting pot.
Doing Ancestry.com would be lots of fun for them.
Very fun.
So let me ask you guys this. What is the best investment that you've ever made?
Oh, gosh. That's a really good question.
Well, first, I would frame it by saying, well, what do we define as the return that we'd like to identify, right? Because when you define success, then you can, many different things could then come from that. So what do you think? I mean, I think the answer would be the best investment I ever made was investing in the self-confidence to ask Ilona to out on dates and to marry me, because the return on that investment has been quite lucrative. I guess you could say that. But that's where it's one of those things where someone says one of the most important decisions you make is your spouse, right? And so I feel like I did that. But so I've taken that answer. What are you going to say?
No, I think, and I know that's a corny answer, but I think it's really true. I think half the battle of having a good life and being successful is who you choose as a partner. So I think that's really key. But I like, from a practical standpoint and kind of, bringing it back down, I do think that investing in taking our education seriously and wanting to establish our careers, and just be very curious and, driven by wanting to do more and learn more has really paid off. And so I feel really, really grateful that Takaya and I could really, I feel now, live our best life. And I think the reason we can live our best life and we have the flexibility we have and we could be business owners while raising a family. And now I don't really feel like I'm sacrificing anything. I don't feel like I'm sacrificing my family life. I don't feel like I'm sacrificing my career. And I think the only reason we're both able to do that is because we've invested some long hours and some hard work early on into establishing a solid foundation. Yeah. So I think that's really important. And that's something that I'm sure I'll preach to my kids and they'll roll their eyes and go, oh my God, here mom goes again. But I just think that when you're young, there is this desire to like have, of course you have to have fun and experience life, but I think a big part of that too is just giving yourself the opportunity to absorb and learn as much as you can, because the opportunities that present themselves after that can be huge, right? And if you're not really applying yourself and taking advantage of being young and hungry and being that sponge, I don't know if we would be where we are today. And I'm really grateful that we're in this position. And there have been so many helpful, amazing mentors along the way. One of the other things that I want to say, and before I let Takaya go, is that investing in maintaining relationships with people that are just valuable people and become invaluable in your life is so important to me. A partner at PwC a long time ago asked me, what is your worth? And that was another one of those questions. You're like, whoa, I don't know. And I was young, so I was like, what, the market? Like if I go to market, someone wants to pay me $85,000 instead of you guys paying me $60 because you have the PwC name. Is that my value? I don't know. And he goes, no, you're only worth the people you know. And that just simple sentence has stuck with me and I will never forget it. And it's so true. I mean, the people you have in your life, both professionally and personally, mean everything. And that is so important, I think, investing in those relationships and cultivating them, because they just change your life, for the better. So that's what I would say.
Invest. So we don't have like this crazy investment that we can turn to, but I think another one would be to say investing in living below our means, right? And so what that's allowed us to have a bunch of options. So we can both quit our jobs and pursue this dream because we don't have these massive expenses that we're always struggling to meet, right? So just prioritizing those things, cutting that, and then taking advantage of what we do have, because you never know when that next opportunity, that door opens. And so making sure you're prepared, and you can prepare yourself by, always being hungry, always being, treating people the right way, but then also making sure that your own home court is, well cleaned and ready to go, right? So that when Justin calls and says, hey, we've got this great opportunity for you, we don't have to think twice.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Thank you. I want to elaborate on a few things that you guys said. First of all, that was great. I really enjoyed hearing that from you guys. I think in this day and age, a lot of people are looking for, especially like, my kids are starting to go into college, and like social media, and everyone wants instant everything. Mm-hmm. And to succeed in business, yeah, there are people that get rich quick and they're all over TikTok or Facebook or whatever, but like the average person has to work and put in time. And one of the best tenets of investing is compounding of interest. Just let your money work for you and compound over time. It's the same exact thing in business, where you put in energy and you work at it and you toil with it and you just grow with it. And that's what you guys did. And now you have the liberty to have a life that's great. Now, I'm not saying that you have to have a really, really bad life in the beginning, but you just had to be smart about it. And you got to have a vision and buy-in that you're building something, you're building equity, you're building something, and you're not just floating. So right. I love that. And then my second one is, this is going to be a question for you, Takaya. Why is it so hard for people to live below their means?
That's tough, right? I think that, I don't know. I can't speak for other people, but what I can say is the way that I've found it to be the way that's really driven me is having a goal. bottom line. And I'm sure everybody has a goal, but I've allowed our goal, and I think both of us, is we've said this is what we want and we're going to make it happen to get there, right? So that sort of impacted the decisions that we've made. Could we move somewhere else? Yeah, we could, but that doesn't fit into sort of the goals that we've set for ourselves. And also setting those goals have allowed us to identify the right opportunities at the right time, right? So to say, hey, when's the right time to buy a house? We say, well, this is our goal as to how we want to set it up. So then when, you know, prices or whatever went to a certain level, we knew that now was the right time. And I think that for me anyways, without having that target to sort of remind yourself, it's very easy to then do what's easy for the day, right? As opposed to that sort of long-term goal. And I think the interesting part is that it's very similar. Like some people can be really good at financial goals and terrible at health goals. And some people can be great at health goals, but terrible at financial goals. Like setting those things for yourself and sort of appreciating what you can do on those fronts is important. And I mean, I think that it comes back down to what you were saying is I think that there's a challenge today where you can see everybody's best moments, right? And you don't know what it took to get there. And some people make a lot of money maybe on these other platforms, but there's a lot of work behind the scenes that you don't see. You just see the results. And so if you compare yourself to everybody else's best moments, then you always feel like you need to catch up. Whereas if you take a step back and you say, look, the only person I need to please is myself, my kids, my family, then the sort of means sometimes come down to what makes you happy. And if one of the goals for you to be happy is to say, I want to be able to do what I want to do, or I want to be able to have the freedom to spend more time with my family, then it makes it easier to make those decisions. And I'd sort of carry an analog back to health, which says, once you start counting your calories, it's a lot easier to lose weight because you know what you're putting in your body, right? Once you start setting and tracking your workouts, it's a lot easier to say, hey, am I making progress? I think it's very similar on the financial end, which is once you say, this is where all my money is going, then, you know, that's where
tracking is huge. Well, thank you so much. I have a final, actually maybe two, but a final one is, I always ask this to people and I'm just curious and you're like, what? How do you guys spend the first hour of your day? Like, what do you do for the
That's easy. We're like when we wake up.
No, like you wake up at 6:30. What do you do from 6:30 to 7:30? Like, what are you guys doing?
Well, it's funny, and you're going to roll your eyes, but we actually have a written schedule as to what we do.
Oh my God.
We have a written schedule. So if you go down the list.
Wait, who wrote that?
Who
do you think wrote it? Yeah. No, but we collaborated on the contents, but the need for a schedule said, again, what it comes back down to it is like, if you don't have this sort of list, it's very easy to skate by, right? And so what it came back down to is like, how are we spending our mornings? And we want to feel accomplished. And one of the main things we said is, look, we want, especially in COVID, we want to make sure our kids aren't in their pajamas all day. So we'll dress our kids, take our kids for a walk, give them breakfast. We'll read books. We'll, I mean, if we want to go into the details, we've got a list. We'll make the beds. We'll do all that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I think what happens is like Takaya and I have a very now blended family life and business life, right? Especially now where we're working from home and especially during quarantine. And so we have to be a little more structured with how we split our day because it can get a little chaotic. And so we got really good about saying we're defining our morning routine and then we jump into work and then we're defining our evening routine. And that's kind of just helped take out the noise because there is that desire to, let me respond to those 2-3 emails really quickly. And that's really difficult because then like the personal side gets messy and then you look over and there's like peanut butter everywhere, right? So we're very intentional about kind of how we start off our day, but coffee's first. We definitely brew our coffee like number one. And then we try to just like have fun and enjoy our kids for a bit before doing some fun stuff, like, taking our dog for a walk and getting some playtime in and some like family breakfast time. And I actually think that the quarantine's given us even more of an appreciation for being business owners and being able to spend some more time with them in the morning and not have to rush out the door and, feel like we have to be super productive. So yeah, it's really family time. And
what's the point of being a business owner if you don't get to take advantage of it, right?
Yeah.
Which is You work on your own schedule. And then when it comes down to work time, we spend the first hour sort of clearing emails, getting back with our clients, re-engaging with them. And then once we make sure that sort of all the loose ends are tied up, then we get into saying, okay, now let's look at our Trello board, which is our project management way of saying, what do we need to do today? What can we wait till tomorrow? All that sort of stuff.
Got it. So I've got one final question, and give me a shorter answer on this one. What have you learned about yourself during the quarantine?
I think I've learned that I was not, before becoming a business owner, even that first year, it was just such a continuous like move. Everything has to just be moving constantly. And you're going from one thing to another and going to that meeting and coming back, and then you're taking your kid to swim. And so it was just getting a lot of things done, but I don't think I was stopping to really appreciate and enjoy and think about like, how do we really want to structure a day? So it's given me a sense of appreciating, being able to just have some unstructured time and wanting more of that now. And I think we'll be better and more intentional with making sure we have more unstructured time even after we go back to normal. That's what I want.
And for me, I mean, it's also what I'm sure very successful business people have sort of figured out, and will continue to build success, which is focus on what matters and sort of ignore the stuff that doesn't matter, and understanding that you can do more with less, right? Like if you want to start your day and work from 11 to 4, you're probably going to be just as effective as 9 to 5 because you are being more hyper prioritized. You're sort of getting rid of the noise, because it's so easy to start at 9 and then realize, what did I do for 2 hours? And it's 11 anyways, and you do the work from 11 to 4, right? So, or whatever that time is. So figuring out that, and that leads into, do the things that are the most important, and don't worry about the stuff that you don't need to worry about.
Yeah.
Awesome. You guys are such a good team. I love it. It's been great to have you on. Thank you for coming. Where can people go to find out more information about you? We'll put it in the show notes, but give us your website just so that we have that.
Sure. It's brunneraccounting.com, and Brunner is spelled BRUNNER.
Brunneraccounting.com. Great. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for having us, Justin.
This was great.
Thank you. We really enjoyed. Thanks for letting us share a story.
Have a question? Want to get in touch with us? Need some help and advice with your finances? Just go to coolmoneyshow.com and reach out to us. That's coolmoneyshow.com.
Krane Financial Solutions is an SEC-registered investment advisor. However, such registration does not imply a certain level of skill or training, and no inference to the contrary should be made. A copy of our current written disclosure statement discussing our advisory services and fees is available upon request. Information contained herein is for informational and illustrative purposes only and general in nature. It should not be considered specific financial planning or investment advice, or a recommendation to buy or sell any type of securities or other investment products. No investment decision should be made based solely on any information provided herein. We do not provide legal, accounting, or tax services. We recommend that all investors seek out the services of competent professionals in any of the aforementioned areas. Certain information provided has been obtained from third-party sources that we believe reliable. However, it's not been independently verified and is not guaranteed.